you're on side with God. So anger, having problems with anger, if you have problems or you know someone that has problems with anger, actually, the anger itself is, as long as the person's repented of it and say, yeah, this is a problem, I need to sort this out, that's fine, that's what God wants to hear. And as long as he's got that, he can work with you. I was going to say something else there, but it's gone. Lord, if it's important, bring it back. Okay, so let's talk about just some standard anger management stuff before we get into more spiritual stuff. I've got a picture here. I'm going to try and show you. There it is. It's not very big, but I'll point out bits on it. This is your brain, a brain, and we're going to talk a little bit about how anger affects the body. Anger is spiritual, it's about your soul, but it's also about your body. And when we think about anger and anger management, it's good to be able to actually think about, well, body, soul and spirit. What's going on in my body? What's going on in my soul, my thoughts, my will, my intellect, my emotions? What's going on in my spirit? Because we think about anger as being like an emotional thing. Oh, I feel angry, don't we? That's what we say, I feel angry. But actually, if you think about it, what we mean by that sometimes is a physical feeling of anger. It's a physical sensation of anger, and it's not necessarily an emotional feeling of anger. And that physical sensation of anger can be caused by a lot of other things as well. Sometimes, I don't know if you've ever experienced just feeling on edge before anything's really happened. And someone's feeling on edge. There we go. And there you go, that's a prime example. Like, you might feel on edge and not even know why if you're a baby. You just know that you're feeling on edge. Your mum knows that you need milk. So you start going, ah! You can feel on edge just because of things that are happening to your body. Maybe your body's too hot. Maybe there's too much white noise around. Maybe, yeah, all sorts of things like that. Those are those two sort of prime examples. Maybe you've had too much caffeine. Maybe all these things. And so we'll look at the body first of all and what we can do to help the body. So remember, your body, it is you, it's part of you, you get around in it, but it's not really you, it's not really the part of you that's been made into a Christian. So you could say, I'm a Christian, but my body is still, my body has yet to be convinced of that. So let's look at the body stuff. What happens to your body when you get angry? Well, loads of stuff. When you get angry, your body thinks there's going to be a fight. So it goes into fight or flight, which I'm sure you've heard about. And it does a whole bunch of stuff. So it ups your heart rate to get you ready to fight. It throws adrenaline into your system to make you able to hit harder and run faster. This is why people that are angry often slam and break things accidentally, because they haven't allowed for the adrenaline. So when they do something, they'll often smash things accidentally. They didn't mean to smash it. They just, sometimes you hit a door and you didn't mean to do that. But sometimes it's just because they get clumsy because they've got too much adrenaline. What else happens? Your pupils often dilate. A lot of blood will be rushed to the surface so that it can keep cool as it's rushing around, so you get red. So you get that classic sort of anger face. Even children can spot an anger face. You can draw a red face with big eyes and teeth, and they're like, that person's angry. All sorts of things happen. You probably maybe sweat more because of all that adrenaline. If you're not doing anything, if you're not rushing around, you'll probably start shaking because your body needs to discharge that. One of the most interesting things that happens is called the amygdala hijack. We'll come back to that. And also probably you'll start breathing more shallowly. And it's very difficult once you've started doing that to stop feeling stressed out. We'll teach you a technique in a moment for that. We're doing all right. It's coming up at 7 o'clock. So this is your brain. Your brain's actually not all these different colours. I think they've just put that in for the heck of it. There's two cortex, two sides to your brain. The left, my neuroscience is a bit rusty, but I know that I always remember left is language, left is logic. So all of your, if I asked you to count back from 100 in sevens, that would be your left hemisphere doing that. Or if I asked you to remember the French word for house, that would be that side. The right-hand side is all to do with imagination. So if I asked you to, I don't know, to imagine what it would be like to be flying a rocket made out of marshmallows, you'd be using your right cortex. Now, way down here, deep in the brain, is this little fella called the amygdala. And the amygdala's job is to keep you out of trouble. It's been given to you by God so that your body can actually act without conscious thought in a dangerous situation. So I was at this point going to go bang really loud, just without telling you, and scare everyone and make everyone jump to prove that the amygdala is thinking for you. But because we've got a small child here, I won't do that. Oh, right, okay. Well, but what would happen is your body would jump because of that jolt of adrenaline, and all sorts of things that we talked about would suddenly happen. Your pupils would dilate, your body would prep itself. And that can happen without you even thinking about it. That's the amygdala's job, to hijack the whole of your brain and to get you ready to act. It causes you to breathe shallowly, causes your heart rate to ramp up. Interestingly, it also cuts off all of your access to your higher brain functions. Because you don't need to be able to quote Shakespeare when you're hitting someone or running away from a fire. It's not necessary for you to be able to do that, so it frees you up from all that. And what happens is you enter into quite a primal state where you are just about survival, really. And this is why, well, a couple of reasons. This is why you can never think of anything really clever to say to your partner in an argument when you're angry with them until later. And then later you think, why didn't I say that to him? That would have cut him to the quick. The reason is you didn't have access to that part of your brain, that clever thinking part of your brain while you're angry. It's also the reason that people talk about the red mist descending when they're angry, or I just didn't know what I was doing. If I'd known what I was doing afterwards, I wouldn't have done it. It's because they can't think straight. They're not really themselves. And it's also why you can't reason with someone who's angry. Just don't bother. They're not reasonable. They're not a reasonable person while they're in that intense anger phase. It's hard to maintain that intense anger phase more than about 10 minutes. Most people take a long time to get there, and then they'll take a while to simmer down. What might happen is that they spike several times during the same hour. It's really important when we're thinking about your body to think, how is my body today? If you're feeling worked up and on edge, do a quick scan of your environment and what's happening to your body. Is there loads of noise? Okay, sometimes unavoidable. Yeah, I've got a young child and I know sometimes it's unavoidable with noise, but you can switch some of it off. Is it really warm? You're more likely to have road rage and stuff like that if it's really warm. So see if you can adjust that. How much caffeine have I been putting into myself? Have I eaten anything? Is my blood sugar bottomed out? I am like an angry bear if I haven't eaten most of the time. I am. I know, and I'll just, like, my wife's very wise, and she carries around snacks. Like, if it's a Sunday and I've missed breakfast, she'll come to church with a snack because she knows I get like an angry bear. And she gives it to me. So, think about these things, what's happening before you rush into anger with someone. Because when you're feeling angry, you're more likely to be angry with someone. Women, particularly during the menstrual cycle, have a lot more testosterone going on as the egg leaves the follicle. You have a lot more testosterone, and they have this unaccustomed testosterone rush. Now, fortunately, by the time they're through their teens, most men have got used to their testosterone, and it doesn't make them go a bit crazy with people. But women do tend to, a little bit, they struggle to cope with it, and, you learn to walk carefully around your partner if you're in a long-term relationship during that time. And in a sense, actually, it can be quite nice to know that they're going through that time. Because you think, oh, that's great. I'm not really, really bad. It's partly that, she's riding the cotton pony. That's what we could... Anyway, getting back to the amygdala hijack. So for whatever reason, you're now angry. You've gone through the build-up thing. You're now angry. You can't think straight. You can't reason. It's impossible to calm down. So whilst you're angry, what can you do to calm down? You've got enough about you to think, oh, man, I'm angry. It feels good being angry. This is why some people prefer to get angry than get anxious. And also some people use anger as a method of control. We might talk about that later. that they'll control other people through their anger because people are like, oh, God, give them what they want. And you see that a lot in customer service with angry customers ringing up. Usually when they're angry with someone, you have to do what's called dehumanize that person. So you're familiar with that from the Nazi Party that dehumanized the Jews so that they could then do all this stuff to them. But that's the reason road rage happens. You get perfectly normal drivers that wouldn't go up to someone and shout at them, and it happens on the internet as well. If you can't see that person and look into their eyes, you're much more likely to be able to get angry with them. What else happens when people are angry? Just from the psychiatric side of things, your sense of personal space gets much wider. Usually your personal space, when someone feels uncomfortable, like if I come up here to Linda, I stand about here, that's okay. If I come about here, well, we're in like quite a, you know, we're friends now, and any closer than that's a bit weird. So if you're angry with someone, their personal space is bigger. So, oh dear. So usually, if I'm about here, then that's a really good distance away from you, and you're not going to be angry with me. But if you're already angry, you're going to perceive that I'm in your face. And you hear this from people who are like, they were in my space, they're in my face, they're in my face. When people are in cars, their sense of personal space is like massive. So, and they perceive the car as themselves. So that you'll hear this constantly about, he went right into me. Went right in, no, he didn't. He went into your car. So that happens. How on earth can you gain control when you're going on like that? Well, one of the things you can do is just try and balance the oxygen and carbon dioxide in your blood. As you're breathing very shallowly, what happens is the oxygen comes into your lungs, the blood cell comes up, picks up oxygen, whips it down to one of your muscles or whatever. But because you've got imbalance in oxygen and carbon dioxide, it can't get into the muscle, and it goes back and round and round. And this is why people end up feeling incredibly stressed and just breathless, and they can't really, particularly in anxiety, but also sometimes in anger, and they'll start to shake because perhaps their muscles are working actually anaerobically without oxygen. So we need to balance that. And one of the simplest things you can do to, whilst you're getting angry and also while you are angry, to get some control back is to, someone's angry and they want a biscuit, is to use a breathing technique. And the best breathing technique to use, I've found, is called the 7-11 breathing technique. And I'm just going to take a couple of minutes to explain it. I say it's the best for various reasons. I've used it and it works, as opposed to a lot of breathing techniques. No one else knows you're doing it. It doesn't require a paper bag or anything like that, and it's clinically proven, and you can hopefully remember it. You can hopefully remember 7-11. You need to practice it when you're not angry so that you can do it when you are angry. As I've said, your brain won't be working so well when you're angry, so you need to have it down. If I bring back our picture of the brain, I don't know if it's going to come up now, it's gone off. Oh well, we'll get back to the brain. There it is, there it is. This bit at the back here, the cerebellum, looks a bit like a walnut, is where all your things that you've done so many times you don't have to think about them are stored. It's almost like little programs. So riding a bike, brushing your teeth, combing your hair, anything like that. And to make sure that your 7-11 breathing technique's been practiced so you don't really have to think about it, it's just there. They do the same thing with soldiers in this country, and I'm sure other countries, when they're training them, they know that they're not going to be able to think straight during combat because they're going to be incredibly stressed out and in a high arousal state as if they're angry. So they make them practice and practice and practice their what's called actions on, or actions on contact. You check all your flaps are closed, you check the amount of ammunition you have, you make sure this has happened, and they go over and over and over and over until people are sick to death of their actions on, because that means that once they get into combat, they don't have to think about it, it's there. And you need to do the same thing with your anger management techniques. Practice them when you're not angry so they're there. So the 7-11 breathing technique, very easy. You breathe in for a count of 7. You breathe in through your nose. This is easy because you do it anyway. You then breathe out for a count of 11. You breathe out through your nose. Easy because you do that anyway. The reason it's through your nose and not your mouth is because your mouth is bigger than your nose and you will release too much carbon dioxide if you breathe out through your mouth. So you breathe in for a count of 7, you breathe out for a count of 11, always through your nose. And you just carry on doing that